right. Well, as June said, you all know me. All of you are students or former students, so I don't have to do a super big introduction. As you all know, I'm one of the lead instructors here at PDX Code Guild. And in the last week of class, we always talk about careers and job search, strategies, background information, everything like that. So for those of you who are in my current class, that's a lot of what we're going to be talking about next week. So it's going to be a little bit in a different order than usual. Next week, we'll be talking a ton about kind of what you should do. We'll go over a lot of those job search checklist type things. We'll talk about LinkedIn, resumes, personal branding, so on. June might come in and do some guest lecturing as well about that. I'll be doing a bunch of talking. But one of the things that we will go over is how to read a job listing, a tech job listing, because they're not necessarily easy to read. A lot of times they include weird things. Lots of times they are written by HR managers that either misheard or didn't really don't really know necessarily what exactly they're putting in there. So there is a bit of a game of telephone that happens as what the hiring manager is looking for makes its way to what the hiring manager asks for, makes its way to what the HR person writes up, makes its way to what's actually in the job listing. And also, they're not always the most clear things in the world. It's really nice when you can find ones that say junior developer, mid-level developer, senior developer. But most of the time they don't. Most of the time they'll just say front-end engineer, back-end engineer, full-stack web developer, things like that. And it's really up to you to to read between the lines and tell whether that sort of job is something that's being aimed at whether it's something that's being aimed at more of an entry level, more of a mid-level, or more of a senior level person. So the easiest way to tell is by looking for how much experience they ask for. This is a little bit of a misnomer because it's always going to ask for more than you're actually going to have. I think this goes back to what June was saying about you're good to go if you have about 70% of what they're asking for. And that absolutely, probably most importantly, applies to the amount of experience they ask for. If they ask for 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 years of experience, that's a junior developer position. That's an entry-level position. It's now, of course, it's a bit of an oxymoron, right? To have a entry-level position that requires experience. But two things. Number one, as you'll see as you get out into the process and everything, tech hiring is a little silly and a little broken. It's not as bad as it used to be. Companies are definitely trying to make it more sane, but there's still some craziness to it all. So yeah, they're inflated. But the other thing is, remember that you all have experience. Remember, 70% of a year is just like 7 months right there. And at the very least, your 101 and your boot camp time took 4 months probably right there. So it's really not much of an exaggeration at all to put yourself down for a year of experience as someone with a boot camp grad, as someone who is a boot camp grad. There's always I know you'll hit, you'll always hit, everybody does hit that kind of imposter syndrome moment where you're like, but I don't have any experience. I just started out. I don't have any skills. But just remember that you do. You do have, June was talking about that skills checklist. We put together a skills checklist that that's really a minimum set of skills that, as someone who's graduated from this boot camp, you all have. You all have experience working in a lot of different things, whether you realize it or not. When you're looking at things and you're like, oh, this required, they say they want a year plus or 1 to 2 years of experience or 1 to 3 years of experience. Is this really something for me? Remember that A, you really do have more experience than you're probably giving yourself credit for. And B, like most things on a tech listing, it is a bit of an exaggeration. Just remember that most things on a tech listing are a bit over the top, are a bit inflated. They tend to be, again, there's that game of telephone, things that that a team leader, a team lead may have, idly wished for out loud as a nice to have, gets turned into a must have by the time it makes it into the actual job listing. Job listings are definitely much more comprehensive, ask for much more than most companies expect to be able to get. Remember that as you've figured out over the last 4+ months, tech is hard and there are a lot of things out there to learn. And unless it is, something where it really is a senior job, it's unrealistic to expect that whoever you hire is going to be able to know so many things. Especially because, and this is another thing that the companies aren't going to tell you, is that sure, they would love someone who knows everything, who can do everything from day one, who is ready to hit the ground running, who knows a million technologies and can just do things right out of the top of their head. But those people are really expensive. Even in a kind of a city like Portland, something that's not New York, it's not San Francisco, it's not Seattle, it's more of a sane, more of a normal, tech pay structure. You're still looking at, if someone has those skills, you're still got to pay them at least $200,000 a year. People that do know everything that's in the job listings are really, really expensive. And most companies honestly really don't have either they don't have enough to do for people that warrant that 200,000 a year or so. There's so that's the thing. They would ultimately, every company would love to be able to hire someone that knows this whole big list of things, but in the end, almost no company you look at the listing for is willing to pay the amount necessary to get someone who's experienced enough to have all of that. They're going to compromise because they'd like to whittle it down to someone who's actually has the experience that they're willing to work for, $75,000 a year or $65,000 a year or something like that. So they will. So just remember that when you read these lists of all these things, they really are wish lists. People would love to get all of those things down, but they know that they're not. And oftentimes these job listings are describing a $200,000 a year candidate, and they're really looking to hire a $65,000 to $75,000 a year candidate. They know they're not going to get everything they asked for. Unfortunately, they're not going to tell you that, which means that it is up to you to be able to look at a job listing, look at those qualifications, and be able to take a deep breath, calm down, look at the job listings, and make sure that you are at just at that 70% that you generally fit the requirements, and to go ahead and apply anyway. It's really a filter on people who have never been told this, really. So again, if something's asking for 1 to 2 to 3 years of job experience, it's a junior position. If something's asking for 3 to 5 years, it's a mid-level position, which really mid-level does not mean 3 to 5 years. It means 2 years. It means 1 to 3 years, depending on how much of a rock star you were in your first job, how fast you kept learning and everything. And a senior job will last for 5-10 years. It just means 5 years plus. So you'll see things like that, and that's also a good indication. But oftentimes you will get job listings that do not actually that don't actually specify a number of years. That don't actually say out loud whether they don't have junior, senior, anything like that in the name. And they don't actually say, for instance, an amount of years of experience they're looking for. And that's where it gets a little bit tricky. That's where you have to think about and read between the lines to be able to tell what level a job listing is aiming for. I went and dug up here some job listings. I'm going to share my screen in a second. I've got some job listings here from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different companies that are. I got these companies off the just the Portland Tech Job. Was it portlandtech.org? The Portland Tech Jobs website. So they're all companies that. These aren't all necessarily Portland job listings, but they are all companies that do some work in Portland. So they're all at least Portland adjacent job listings. And for the most part, I've kept a couple in just to kind of further show off the differences. But for the most part, none of these listings ask for years of experience or have words like junior, lead, level 1, level 2, those sorts of things in the name. So we'll go through them. And I am going to show you a little bit about kind of how to read between the lines and how to tell something that is more of an entry-level job and what's a little bit more of a mid-level job. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. All right, so the first one that I wanted to look at is Expensify. This is a company that it's based in the Bay Area, but they've got a big office in a really nice kind of old classical bank building in downtown Portland. Unfortunately, I've never been able to. I didn't find an excuse before the pandemic to make it to their office for a meetup or anything, but they have a super cool office. They're famous for the whole team goes and works abroad for a month. That's kind of their big shtick in terms of hiring and perks and everything. But they are very much and they do financial data and financial software, so they got plenty of money. And their job listings are some of those that don't actually say what kind of level of position they're looking for. So let's go ahead and look at, I've got 2 positions open. I've got a full stack engineer and I've got a mobile full stack engineer. So obviously there's a little bit of a difference there, right? One is mobile development and one is just full stack web development. But one of these job listings is targeted at junior level developers, and one of them is targeted at mid-level developers. Even though they've got almost exactly the same position title, and even though there is nothing in each of these that says anything about an amount of time. And even though the compensation and benefits looks the same for both of them. So does next steps. It really comes down to this about you bit right here. This is where these 2 job listings differ. And here's a good example of how we can look at these and start to see the differences between something that's looking for juniors and looking for mid-level. Again, there's nothing that screams right off the page. There's nothing that tells you directly, this job is for this level. This job is for this level. But if you look at the signs, if you know what to look for, if you know what words to focus on and what words to look for, it's actually really easy to tell the difference. Let's look at this listing right here for full stack engineer. Your responsibilities include implementing improvements, planning, building, and maintaining cross-stack features, guiding and enabling others in the organization, and asking questions about things you don't understand. We're looking for someone who has experience writing real-world software, communicates well, is a natural problem solver, understands the role and impact that programming can have, and wants to grow or their skills in programming and leadership within the organization. We're looking for people with a strong understanding of algorithms and design patterns that can apply those concepts, knowledge and experience with JavaScript, React, React Native, PHP, C++, Java, iOS, or Android is a plus. This position is the foundation for launching a career, blah, 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 blah. So a couple of things here. First of all, notice that they do ask for specific technologies, but knowledge and experience with React, React Native, PHP, C++, Java, iOS, Android is a plus. Two things to note in that sentence, plus and or. It's all a plus. These are things that they'd like you to have. Oftentimes, if you see a development technology in a list of pluses, usually it doesn't mean that you'll be expected to do that in the job. Usually, it's fairly common for job listings to basically take the entire tech stack across the whole company and put that in the nice to haves. It would be nice if you knew something about our entire company workflow. Maybe it means you can pitch in on this or pitch in on that, but oftentimes it's things that you aren't actually expected to do in the job. The other thing is or. They'd like you to have these types of things. You don't have to necessarily line up completely 100% with the technologies listed. For example, if something asks, you'll see lots of things that ask for things like React or similar front-end framework, experience with Java, Python, or a similar back-end object-oriented language. You'll see a lot of that kind of language. Especially as a junior level employee, they're not going to be worried by exactly what technologies you know. They're much more interested to know that you know how to use front-end JavaScript frameworks. You know how to use CSS. You know object-oriented programming, functional programming. You know how to interact with a database. You know how APIs work. You know how to use MVC web development frameworks like Django. They're much more concerned about that than that you actually know these specific things. So again, take a deep breath, look at the job listing, and think about how you can best position yourself based on what it's asking for. But also don't worry if you don't know everything, certainly if you don't know everything on that list. So let's go back up and look at some of these different, words. We've got words like implementing, planning, building, guiding. Yeah, I guess those are the big ones here. So those words imply some responsibility and some higher level thinking. They want you to plan things and build things, enable and guide others, things that imply a little bit more top level stuff. That is your key here, that this is probably a mid-level position, that this is a description for a mid-level position. There are lots of words like that mean that they want you to start to take ownership of things, start to be able to think, plan, architect, put things together, guide others. And these are all things that do require some experience. And so those are things that are going to be mid-level. Words that you'll see that often that you can look for to infer that it's more of a mid-level or senior position is things like implementing, creating, guiding, building, planning, designing, architecting. If you see the word strong a lot, like strong knowledge of this, strong knowledge of that, demonstrated experience, demonstrated is another one that you see often in more mid-level to advanced. Anything involving leading or mentoring usually infers more of mid-level to advanced. managing, owning, being able to own something. It all comes down to basically autonomy. That's really the big difference between a junior level position, a mid-level position, and a senior position. A junior position should be able to do things as part of the team. A mid-level person should be able to work independently and start to create things on their own. And a senior level person should be able to manage, both manage people, manage and mentor people, and be able to work to architect and create and make those big technical decisions for the project itself. That's really where the breakdown between junior, mid-level, and senior comes in. Obviously, for you all, it's really whether the job listing is expecting you to be doing more creating, more independent work, or if it's expecting you to be able to work on smaller things in collaboration with other people. So for that, let's look at this other job listing. Remember, mobile full stack engineer. Both of them are full stack engineer positions, but let's look at this one. Let's look at, everything looks fairly similar, but let's look at the about you. You're a self-driven engineer with an entrepreneurial spirit who's not afraid to work with our sales team. Ideally, you'll have a general understanding of and experience in JavaScript, Android, and/or iOS, and mobile design patterns. PHP, React Native are all a plus, but not a requirement. As a full stack engineer, your responsibilities include collaborating with the team for large feature development implementation, independently develop smaller features and adjustments, squashing bugs, big, small, and hairy. For best fit, we're looking for someone who works great on a small collaborative team, can design new features and tackle the annoying bugs, writes clean, concise, and commented code, can collaborate with other engineering teams to create new features and fix existing issues, is comfortable with every part of the software development lifecycle, and can get shit done. So two things I want to point out there. One is, look at the words here. Things like collaborate. The word small appears a couple of times here. Independently developing smaller features. Adjustments, bugs, job listings that ask you to be comfortable with things, job listings that expect you to have some knowledge of things, and other things that just sound kind of like the basics, things that you almost don't even think about. Things like, again, works great on a small team, writes clean, concise, and commented code, can collaborate with other engineers, is comfortable with every part of the development lifecycle, and can get stuff done. Those are things that sound pretty basic, and they're right on that line, right, between a hard skill and a soft skill. They're not a list of technical skills, or they're not like a different language or something. But they are things that are important that employers are looking for. There are things that you might not think of right off the bat when you're starting to think about things like your resume, things like your LinkedIn, things like your cover letter. These are all things that they are looking for. They are things that I have made you all do in the boot camp. And they are things that are really good and can really help your application stand out if you do put them in your LinkedIn, in your resume, in your cover letter, in things like that. So again, we see here in this job listing, we see lots of things about collaborating, doing small things, making adjustments, squashing bugs. Lots of smaller things that don't require a lot of responsibility. We also see lots of emphasis on soft skills and more of these basics. Those are other things that you'll see here in junior developer level listings like that. Again, you have a general understanding of and experience in. They're not asking for you to have strong experience or demonstrated experience. They're asking for a general understanding of these sorts of things. So obviously, none of you, well, maybe not obviously, I don't think any of you have any experience in Android and or iOS development. If you did for some reason, if you had done some projects on your own, or had taken maybe some other classes or resources or something, then I would say that this this kind of level of job listing is something that every one of you is qualified to apply to once you've left the boot camp. Once you've left just the basic, not even the advanced class, just the basic boot camp. So again, I got a bunch more. We'll spend the rest of the time here just kind of briefly looking at some of these different job listings, again, to just see some more examples. But a couple other things I want to mention first. Note, even for some of these mid-level jobs, really the percentage of what's a hard skill versus what's a soft skill. There is, even at more of these mid-level jobs, a lot of what you'll find in here, you'll usually find it can be more for a junior position, but even for a mid-level position, you'll notice that literally up to 50% of the qualifications, the things that they're asking for and everything are going to be soft skills. These soft skills, again, are things that you might not think of right away, but are great things to make sure, put them in your resume, put them in your cover letter, put them in your LinkedIn. The number one way really to be able to build out your LinkedIn, your personal website, your profile, your resume, your cover letter, etc., is to look at a lot of tech job listings. Look at the words, look at the skills, make lists, and put them in your own stuff. And don't forget those things, all those soft skills, things like, being able to, again, there were some good ones here, right? Things like being able to collaborate with other people, write clean commented code, be comfortable with every part of the software development lifecycle. Again, that's one of the reasons why this is a full stack bootcamp, so that you're familiar with every step, with the whole picture of what goes on. Again, just remember that you're absolutely fantastic, ready to go without a doubt, if you can get yourself up to 70% of what a tech listing is asking for. That doesn't necessarily mean 70% of every word on the page. That means just 70% of the core things that they're asking for. Remember, a lot of the nice to haves, a lot of the pluses are things that, frankly, they don't really expect you to have. They don't really expect you to be skilled at, and they're not going to make you do on the job, because if they were to expect it, if they were to have you do those, they'd have to pay you a lot more. So remember that 70% does not include anything that says plus or nice to have or anything like that. Even once you get rid of those and realize that a lot of those are just, hey, here's what we use. If you know anything about any of it, great. Even once you get rid of those, just the core things, it's that 70, 75%. Make sure you know 70, 75%. If you feel like you are weak on a few minor things, especially in the plus to haves, but even in some of those core things, learn them. Go Google it, put together a project, spend a couple hours a day for a week putting together some little proof of concept, get yourself some basic experience. Again, I said this before, but I want to double down on it. Make sure that you customize your resume, your cover letter, etc., to use the skills, the terms, the languages that you see in these job listings. It shows that you actually read them, that you're not just spamming your information out, and it makes it much more likely that you'll actually, makes it look like you read it, and it makes it much more likely you'll actually get a response. Again, keep in mind that those specific technical skills are usually a wish list. They're usually a very broad list of things that, hey, it would be nice, but again, they're not going to expect it. And again, keep in mind that a very large percentage of these things they ask for are soft skills. Make sure that you've got those soft skills in your resume, in your LinkedIn, things like that. And also skills, that, even technical skills that you might not think about. All of you have experience with ORMs, with database design, with object-oriented programming. Those are things that grads often forget about. They often think about, what are my skills? Oh, well, you know, Python, JavaScript, HTML, CSS, Django, maybe Vue and Django REST framework, and that's it. But that's not it. You have a lot of things like API design, database design, REST APIs. I'm trying to think of what else. I already said like object-oriented programming, ORMs. There's a lot of things like that that you do have experience with, that you have worked with. So finally, just remember not to sell yourself short. So I want to go ahead and there's plenty more we could say. We could keep going. You know, this could go on for hours. And those of you who have had me before know that I do go on for hours. And those of you who are in my class right now can look forward to that next week. But just kind of keeping it within the scope of again, how to read the job listings. I want to go over some of these other job listings that I've been looking at in the last 24 hours. All of these are divided into basically pairs of a junior level position and a mid-level position. Again, most of them do not specify years of experience required. Most of them do not have titles that are different for different levels. But we can read between the lines. We can use these skills to be able to read and figure out what level they are actually going for. And again, all of these jobs aren't necessarily in Portland specifically, but they are all engineering jobs at companies that do have a presence in Portland. So here is, what's this one? Okay, this one is airship, or urban airship if you've been around long enough. So let's look at this one. Backend engineer, and I have an infrastructure manager. Okay, well, I guess this one does have manager in there. That is a little bit of maybe a giveaway. But let's look at the about the role here. So this is a backend engineer. Again, I'm not going to read every line through these, but let's look at the listings for what is expected of a more junior level. Again, this one does say junior to mid-level developer, but let's look at what those things imply. Read, understand, and write code. I mean, hopefully, right? Hopefully, if you're applying to be a developer, you know how to read, understand, and write code. But there's more here. Notice, again, it's a lot of these words. Collaborate, develop, work with other people, test changes, attend meetings, work with a group. A lot of things that that are focused on, again, those basics, being basically familiar, showing basic software lifecycle competencies, which again, you've made all of you practice during your time. And also a lot of work about collaborating and developing newer, smaller things. This one's nice. It says it actually says what you'll do during the first week, month, 3 to 6 months, and beyond. Notice here, this is actually a good point to mention something I forgot. Notice that within the first week, you're just reading things, introducing, being set up, and starting to solve some small problems. Within the first month, you're gaining familiarity. You are starting to deploy some changes and participate in stand-ups and code review. And during the first 3 to 6 months, you're starting to join the rotation, understand things, make decisions, and deploy updates. For most intro junior level positions, keep in mind that the company is expecting that you're not going to make them any money for 6 months. it's going to take you 6 months to get up to speed, to not just that you don't know anything and you need to get up to speed or anything like that. It is expected that you'll spend part of that time, doing some research on company time, becoming better at things, but also you've got to become familiar with the particular set of tools, the particular set of frameworks, libraries, everything like that this particular company is using. Obviously it depends for every company and everything, but a general rule of thumb that I've heard before is that you're not, as a junior developer, you're not going to actually make the company any money for 6 months. They know this. And so that's one of the reasons why it's okay if you're only at 70% of the job expectations, the job responsibilities, because you will, that is basically what you'll spend the first 3 to 6 months of your time on a tech job doing, is reading a lot of documentation, getting used to a lot of things, setting things up, and just getting yourself up to speed. Just getting yourself used to things and up to speed. So again, collaborate, read, understand, and write code, work with other people. Let's compare that to this mid-level job that asks for some actual experience. Mentor, grow, and inspire. As a junior developer, you're not expected to be able to inspire people yet. Collaborate closely with other teams, communicate, balance competing priorities, be a change agent, and push yourself to grow as a manager. They're expecting much more, they're expecting you to take much higher levels of ownership of things. This is AltSource. It's another company here. It's a web company that makes software for other companies. Let's look at the responsibilities for this. So .NET software engineer and a QA engineer. Again, two job listings that are just something engineer. But let's look at them. Responsibilities, collaborate, accurately estimate tasks, bugs, and spikes in your domain. Again, being expected to do anything accurately is a big tell. Build productive relationships, effectively manage, there's the M word, manage risk, change, and uncertainty with support, work with your team, build a solid understanding. So obviously this does ask for some experience and some years of experience in developing and using specifically C# and .NET. But just from here, we could tell that there's a lot of responsibility involved. Let's compare that to this QA engineer position. Operate, understand, build, become an expert, not be an expert, become an expert, assess things, organize and lead, collaborate, find opportunities, and so forth. Again, this is a more lower level job. This is something you could actually apply to. This is something where you're not expected to right off the ground be able to own, lead, architect, plan things. Again, let's go ahead and let's keep going through the rest of these. This is Xander, which I forget which company they absorbed, but they absorbed one of the, no, it wasn't AltSource. One of the other companies I recognized here in town. They've absorbed them, so it's just the Portland office of these guys now. But let's look at some things. Qualifications. Preferably, you have a degree. Demonstratable experience, knowledge and work experience. Again, just understanding and work experience. They're really just asking for you to have knowledge of things. They're not asking for strong knowledge. They're not asking for a lot of demonstrated knowledge, knowledge of fundamentals, experiencing writing unit tests, knowledge of RESTful web services, so things like APIs. Working with SQL is a plus, ability to work independently, comfortable working with the command line. A lot of things that seem, and again, these are, I'm not going to go through these are all more soft skill things. So again, you can see a lot of things that are softer or things that are basics, like working with JavaScript, working with the command line, things that seem fairly basic. Let's compare that to this one. Design, collaborate, participate. Again, when you get things like design, you're looking for something that's asking for more skills, for more upper level skills. And again, you can see here that this one does want some experience. So even if we cover up the part here that says that asks for some experience, still we can see design new features, lead, there's that L word again, and work closely with other engineers, blah blah blah. Those are ways that we can see that this is looking for someone a little more mid-level to senior, someone who can actually implement, create, plan, design, think out new things. So here's a couple from Esri. Esri is the people that make ArcGIS and one of the main companies that makes a lot of the online mapping stuff you'll see. If any of you in Portland have ever gone to Portland Maps, or you've looked up the city's bike map or anything else, pretty much everything map-wise that the city of Portland does is hosted on the Esri web ArcGIS stuff. And here we can see translate customer needs, collaborate, assist. There's another big word, assist with things, review things, troubleshoot things. And sure enough, if we go down here, 1+ years of software industry experience. This is a junior job that all of you, frankly, are qualified for. Excellent problem-solving skills, understanding of web services, some experience with test frameworks. Again, these are things you do not need every single one of these, not even like the recommended stuff. You do not need every single one of these. Again, think about it, 70%. And you can tell just from the responsibilities, and plus it helps that it says 1+ years of experience, but this is an entry-level job. I think I got 2 entry-level and 2 higher-level positions from Esri here. I don't remember which is which though, so let's find out. Learn, collaborate, test, build, research. I think this is a lower end one. Again, this one doesn't say like 1+ years or anything like that, but knowledge of the software development process. Again, words like knowledge, experience, comfortable, as opposed to words like demonstrated or strong. Those are more mid-level words. Things like comfortable or knowledge of, those are more entry-level words. On the other hand, notice design, troubleshoot, create, write code that tests code, work effectively, and communicate your work. Again, this says 2+ years. This is just a little bit more advanced than the other one. This is actually still kind of straddling the line between entry level and mid level. But you can see that in this set of responsibilities, it's starting to add some designing and creating. You're actually expected to start to think for yourself a little bit. And finally, this last Esri position, architect. Architect is again a great tip-off that's probably not a junior level position, that you're expected to have some responsibility and autonomy and design some things. Solve complex problems, write clean, well-documented, high-quality code, implement methods, collaborate, stay current. Again, this one is 2+ years. And finally, Instrument is another digital agency here in Portland. And let's look at, without looking at the 1 to 3 years of development experience, let's look at what they ask for. They ask for experience with a bunch of different things. Passion, again, you'll see passion or interest a lot. And finally, just the ability to integrate with others on a team. Again, these are things that sound pretty basic, but don't neglect them. The best way to make your stuff stand out is to spit that right back in their faces on job applications and stuff. And for what you'll do, execute development tasks, participate in design and implementation, work collaboratively and proactively, and communicate concepts. You're being asked to help participate in some of the design and implementation, but you're not being asked to spearhead any of that or design anything. You're being asked to execute tasks in collaboration with other people. Let's compare that to this other instrument for obviously this one says senior backend developer, but this one says build and release updates, diagram and document, engage and consult. This is asking for more leadership, more creating and architecting, and more mentorship. Those are all things. So you can also see here, fluent, experiment with things, solid history of different things. And of course, there's some bonus points down here. All right, so those are the job listings I wanted to go over. Again, there's a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of stuff there, but the main thing, the thing you can really zero in on is that even if people don't list the amount of experience, even if the title doesn't give it away, remember those first ones we looked at, those Expensify job listings did not have titles, or they really did not outwardly say what level of job candidate they were looking for. But we could tell anyway because of the words used. If it's an intro job, you can expect a job listing that emphasizes assisting, helping, working on small things. Again, words like collaborate, small, adjustments, bugs, knowledge of things, comfortable with things, and lots of emphasis on, again, basics, things that you would think were almost not even things that you probably normally overlook. Things like the one that literally asks for being comfortable with a command line. That's a very basic thing for a web developer. Whereas if you start seeing things like implementing, architecting, creating, guiding, building, planning, designing, mentor, lead, things that infer that you are taking more of a leadership role and more of a design role, that you're in charge of making decisions and planning the whole thing. Those are terms that can hint to you that you're looking at a more mid-level to senior level position. Also things like strong experience in this or that, demonstrated experience, or you don't often see the word own, like be able to own this or own that process or something, but that's really what it comes down to, is being expected to not just work as part of the team, but start to be able to take a leadership role and own a particular feature, piece of the code base, something like that. So again, like I said earlier, we could keep talking and everything for hours and hours, but I think my time is just about up. So does anybody have any questions?
I have a quick question. It's not very detailed, but on the Coinbase jobs, one of the job description keywords that I saw was staff, and it looked like that referred to pretty high-level jobs, like 4 to 8 years, maybe mid-level, maybe senior. Is that common, or is that just maybe specific to all their job postings with a big company? The word like staff software engineer, staff cryptographer.
Yeah, that's weird. That's hard to say. It could be that that's kind of just because I haven't seen that a lot. It could be something that they're using as kind of a synonym for, you know, someone more managerial. It could also be that they could be differentiating. It could be, especially if the ones that say staff tend to be the higher end ones, it could be that they really only hire more experienced people to be actual like W-2 employees, and they could be contracting out or taking people as contractors for for more of the lower level jobs. That could be something. But it's hard to say without digging through and looking.
Thanks, Merritt. That's a good point about the contractor. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Brandon, you got a question?
Yes, I see a lot that say they want a bachelor's degree in computer science or equivalent or similar experience. How much
you've got the equivalent experience.
Okay. So they just want to make sure you're smart enough to.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Especially literally if it says or equivalent experience or something like that, don't worry about it at all. You have an education, a guided education in computer science and how to code. Keep in mind that frankly, there are a lot of computer science graduates that don't know how to code. Computer science goes over a lot of the underpinnings, and knowing computer science things is really valuable for when you get to that mid-level and you want to turn yourself into a senior level person and really be able to attack complex problems and compare different solutions and think about things really in depth and take on some of those really hard things. But at the same time, a computer science program obviously depends on the program, but largely they don't teach you how to code. And there are lots of people that come out of computer science courses not really knowing how to code. You'll be able to code past plenty of computer science graduates. So yeah, if you see something like or equivalent experience, even if something asks for like a BS in computer science, go ahead and apply anyway. If something asks for like a BS in computer science or equivalent experience, don't have any qualms at all applying.
Thanks, Merritt.
Any other questions?
Brandon, just to kind of piggyback on Merritt's, many companies, you don't have to have a college degree. And I think the importance of just keeping on learning code and putting that information in on your LinkedIn, as well as putting your projects ahead of your experience. Because when they go and they look at your resume or your LinkedIn, they're going to see how much you know. And I think that says way more than like a degree. So I would just encourage you to just keep learning, keep getting involved in hackathons or volunteering, and just building on your projects while you're looking for work.
Yeah, at the end of the day, the company wants to know that you can do the job of software development. And frankly, someone who's been specifically learning to code for a couple months, someone who's been forced to, break things up into user stories and make a task list and Kanban it and, do an agile scrum workflow every day and think about milestones and everything. Honestly, someone like that actually has more software development experience than someone who maybe has a computer science degree, fresh out of fresh out of the university, but maybe if they didn't do any internships or anything, then they really don't have any of that experience.
I think we're about out of time, but I think it was very valuable. Thank you so much, Merritt, for doing this. And I just want to do one last note. I really, listening to everybody talk today as you're introducing yourself to me, all of you have so much already transferable skills coming into the boot camp, more than even a college degree. And looking at these job descriptions, 50% is the soft skills. And I think at the end of the day, if you are already at the boot camps and you want to learn, that's what employers like to see. And if you can figure out how to find information and you have these soft skills and you emphasize that, that's what's going to get you the job. You can always go learn. You can pop in on a study hall if you get stuck at something and we can help you. But, you know, knowing that is a big piece. So those are my 2 cents worth. So anyway, thank you again, Merritt.